I'll join you also.
Oh, Mr. Brandisher, won't you sit with us here?
Oh. Glad you asked me. I don't like eating alone. Thank you.
May I have the salt, please?
My name is Brandisher.
I know. I'm Emily Burroughs. I attended your lecture this morning.
Oh, that was a rough one. I felt sorry for the writer.
Oh, poor dear.
Well, I, for one, found it a most enlightening lecture, Mr. Brandisher.
About that story, Mr. Brandisher, isn't it possible that the author exaggerated the editor deliberately?
No, I don't think so. An editor's life is no bed of roses. You know, we have to plow through some pretty awful stuff day after day. Sometimes I'd like to rip up manuscripts and make the writers responsible for them eat the pieces bit by bit. Take the writer of the novel that I discussed this morning. She's probably a wilted little daydreamer who would smolder for years but never ignite. Do you see what I mean, Miss Burroughs?
Oh, I do, Mr. Brandisher. Indeed, I do.
I know you're interested in writing, Miss Burroughs, but what do you do normally?
Well, I'm an actress. Not very well known, but very good.
Really, I've always been interested in the theater. I've even acted in a number of amateur things. I flatter myself that I wasn't bad at all.
Oh, I'm sure you were simply wonderful. You give people the feeling you can look into their innermost thoughts. It takes that to make a good actor, I believe. Excuse me.
Miss Burroughs, I hope I see you again.
Oh, well, I'm sure you will, Mr. Brandisher. I have a feeling we'll be seeing a good deal of each other. Mrs. Sims.
I was held up a little on the rooms this morning. You know, there are days when just everything goes wrong.
Aren't there just?
Are you going to the poetry reading class this afternoon?
No, I'm going to think, Mrs. Sims. Just lie down and think.
A good lecture makes you want to do just that, doesn't it?
Certainly does, Mrs. Sims. Your door was conveniently unlocked.
Did you want to see me?
Would I be likely to be here if I didn't?
Can I give you a drink?
No, thank you very much.
Do you mind if I have one?
Oh, not at all. Mr. Brandisher, I'm the author of the story that made you so unhappy this morning. I'd like to discuss it with you. You said the murder, its motivation, and the act itself were not convincing, that neither the woman nor the editor would do those things.
That's right. They wouldn't. Neither of them are in character. A writer can get by with a lot of things, but not with that.
Suppose I were to tell you that story actually happened.
I wouldn't believe it.
Even if I told you I was the woman who killed the editor?
Particularly not then. If you had, you wouldn't be here. You'd be in prison.
Oh, but you see, they didn't catch me, Mr. Brandisher. It's a relatively small community I live in, and everyone knows me, and my conduct is as dependable as the hall clock. The editor, on the other hand, was a New Yorker. known primarily as a man of peculiar habits and acquaintances. And on the morning of his murder, he was seen in a bar having a violent quarrel with a disreputable character who mysteriously disappeared that day. And presumed to be the assailant, they sent out a search for the man, but they never found him.
That's not very conclusive. You would have me believe that this author was in reality yourself. But surely someone would have known you were with the editor? A housekeeper? Secretary?
Oh, he was an eccentric. He hated having people underfoot. The cleaning woman left at noon that day, and quite by luck, which you editors so abhor in stories, but which in reality is a consistently determining factor in man's destiny, the secretary was ill that day, and we were alone. Quite as alone as you and I are now. At the inquest, I told of my visit 4 hours before the body was discovered. And despite the possibility of my guilt, no one ever seriously considered it. You see, knowing my background, the logical conclusion was for me to commit such an act was simply, well, not in character.
Your imagination, Miss Burroughs, is getting wilder with the minute.
The editor was really the murderer. He took the work I loved and threw it in my face like a piece of trash. And so I shot him. It was just as simple as that.
And I suppose there was no evidence, such as fingerprints?
Oh, I wore gloves on that occasion, as I have now.
Oh. How did you come into possession of the gun?
Well, my father was the constable in our town for 10 years before he died. You know, Thoreau once said, some circumstantial evidence is very strong, as when you find a trout in the milk. Or was it Emerson? Anyway, here it is, Mr. Brandisher. I've come to kill you.
Are you mad? Put that thing away.
Well, I can't kill you with my bare hands. Not that I wouldn't like to, understand.
My dear woman, you're upset. I'm sorry if I said anything to offend you this morning. Now, if you think it would help, I'm willing to try to take some of the sting from my criticism in front of the whole class tomorrow.
Oh, you won't be alive tomorrow, Mr. Brandisher. As you say in the stories you publish in Finesse, we're going to have a little talk. Sit down.